We are live.
Yay!
Yay.
Hello!
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
We're already having a good time.
We are, and we have better technology than we did yesterday, so that is always a good thing. That makes me happy. So welcome to our live. My name is Danno-Horat, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm excited to be here with my good friend MJ Resto. Coach MJ is what she goes by.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, there's Larry Horat watching us. Hi, Larry Horat. You'll be happy to know our technology is working, although we did have a little glitch. In any event, I am the founder of Connect for Success, for those of you who don't know, and we thought it would be really fun to do some interviews with some successful entrepreneurs on different topics. So that's why we're here today with MJ.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here.
So tell us just a little bit about you before we jump in and hear what you have to say about being an entrepreneur in overwhelm, which I love that topic, by the way.
I thought maybe just one or two of us might have ever felt overwhelmed.
I think so. Can anybody out there relate? Hey, Nicole's on there. Hi, Nicole. And Elizabeth Pace, good morning.
Hi. Just a little bit about me. Well, I'm the founder and the I guess I would say president, CEO, owner, whatever, of Imagine Your Health. And what that is it's really a transformational coaching program that uses our health as a resource. So it kind of combines all of that. And of course, everybody has a story of how they got where they are, right?
Yeah,
so that just means that at some point I had to bring my health into my life.
Yes, at some point we all do.
Yeah.
Yes. I love it. Okay, so overwhelm. Talk to us about that a little bit. So, I mean, I've been self-employed for 20 plus years, and I have felt overwhelmed. And you had this little phrase that I loved, and it was like the road to your, what was it? Wait, what did you say? The drive to success sometimes leads to the road to to overwhelm, or what did you call it?
Yeah, I think it was something like, does your desire and drive to success sometimes feel like the path to overwhelm?
Right, exactly. And sometimes it can, because we are driven as entrepreneurs, and well, we have to be driven if we want to make it as an entrepreneur, because you're relying on no one but you. Right.
Well, and I think just to want to be an entrepreneur or want to do our own thing and be who we are in the world says that we're internally motivated.
Yeah.
You know, we're self-driven. And when does that drive, when is it beneficial? And then when are we overusing it?
That's fantastic. So because it is beneficial, obviously.
Yeah.
But like
we all love it, right?
Yeah. To a point, though.
To a point.
Yeah. Because when you're in overwhelm, it's not a good place to be.
Yeah.
It's not a good place to be.
I mean, we love that. I guess I'll talk for me.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm here talking among friends. So when I say we, I'm not trying to speak for you or for anybody, but I'm just trying to include everybody who probably, loves our feeling of strength and loves the drive and internal motivation we have. I mean, we're not told what to do, right? We're going out and doing and being, and then we love it till we don't. In those moments when we don't, and it's just like, there's got to be another way.
Well, yeah, and I think that it causes us, one of two things can happen. You can recognize it, right? And hope to do something about it, or recognize it and just you're in that mode and you just keep go, or maybe you don't recognize it. So can you speak a little bit about that? I'm just curious your take on that.
So I guess I'll tell you a little bit about one of my other, if you've been to any events with me, you've heard lots of bits of my stories. But here's another part of my story is that, so I grew up as one, a military brat, two, as an athlete, a serious trained athlete. So I grew up in this with this mindset, and I loved it, and I cultivated this mindset of always achieving, always doing better, always improving. And while I love that mindset, I learned that I didn't recognize when I was getting out of balance.
Interesting.
because I didn't learn to value that at any time when I was young. And I can't say that my mother never tried to talk to me about that, or that people didn't try and talk to me about that. It was just that I didn't value it. So so I've been married twice, and my second husband is the love of my life, who I am with now, and we've been together for 13, going on 14 years now. I was married for 12 years before that, to my first husband, and I met him young. I was 18, and we got married when I was 19. I had my oldest daughter when I was 20, so I was very young, and I never slowed down. I was in college. I did all those things because I wanted to do all those things.
Right.
I was in college. I have a background, an early former life background in musical theater and thespian stuff and all that performance stuff.
I love learning all these things about people that I never knew.
And so I was a young mother, and I was trying to do all of that. And so then I graduated from college, and I was working full time and doing all of that and trying to, I thought I was an adult, but we know that at 20, in your early 20s, you have much more to learn about being an adult, which I know now. Anyway, I just burned constantly all candles at all ends. Mm-hmm. And what that meant was, when things in my life started going wrong, because we know that there's times in our life that there's hard stuff happens. Mm-hmm. I didn't have anything left for those times.
Oh, because you were spent.
Yeah, because I was always spent, feeling good most of that time. So it's not like I had to learn that my overwhelm didn't come in times when I was just feeling bad all the time. Mm-hmm. I was feeling good. I felt like I was doing everything I should be doing, but I didn't know how to connect with myself very well.
Okay.
And therefore, I couldn't really gauge where I was in terms of my emotional energy, in terms of resilience.
Right.
Did I have enough reserves to be resilient when I needed to be?
It's interesting because you hear people say, when they talk of stress, mm-hmm. sometimes they say good stress or bad stress. Mm-hmm. So like you were just saying, you're in a happy mode, you're doing what you enjoy, but you're going. Mm-hmm. That's still stressful. That can still create overwhelm, right? Yeah. And that's what I hear you saying. And I'm thinking, as you're saying it, that I've absolutely experienced that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the body, and I think a lot of us know, maybe most of us know, that the body registers and responds to stress in the same way, whether we call it and we process it as eustress, which is the good stress, mm-hmm. or distress, which is the bad stress.
Right.
And really the difference between that is just our perception and what our story is, but our body is reacting and processing it the same way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what do we do?
What do we do?
What do we do? Share your wisdom.
Yeah. Well, how long do we have? I guess I think I'll tell a little bit more of my story about how what happened to me during that time, because I didn't just go into overwhelm. I really went into burnout.
Okay.
And I think this is one of the big reasons of what burnout was for me and what it meant to my life. And I realizing at that point of a burnout that I had to seek help, not just go get my numbers, not just get a checkup and know what my numbers were, but I needed to seek healthy energy, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. I had to fill up all those wells. And what happened for me, and when things started going, from, oh, everything's happy and I'm doing good, even though I'm doing 2 million things, is obviously I start out the story saying I was married before and divorced before. And it was, for me, it didn't happen overnight. It was a few years of moving towards that. And that became, I think, very stressful, and there was a lot of conflict, and it was always living inside my body. Like for me, I do not, maybe a few of you are out there like this too. I don't like conflict. I used to have a really hard time bringing up conflict and really have it, like I never had peace of mind when I was in conflict.
Okay. But then you're still in conflict when you're not in conflict, because you're really conflicted
all the time.
Well, no,
that's a little crazy in here.
It is, but I mean, I think we've all experienced that. I don't know if anybody really loves conflict. I mean, I like to address things, me personally. So it's not that I like conflict. Those conversations are hard, but I feel the need to get it out.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't make it easier. So you're dealing with all this conflict because you don't want conflict.
Right.
But you have conflict regardless.
And it wasn't that my former husband and I were fighting all the time. It was that I was always in a fight internally.
Interesting.
It was mostly internally. So anyway, during this period of time, I've also told the story of when I was losing both my parents and my friends. And so all this was kind of happening at the same time. But guess what? I didn't really slow down because I didn't want to stop doing all the things that I thought I wanted to be doing and all of that. So I wasn't slowing down. I wasn't really connected to the different mental and emotional stresses in my life. I mean, I would think about them, but I didn't acknowledge how much I didn't acknowledge, and I will say at that age, I probably didn't know how much I needed to create some shifts in my life and really go into self-care. I can't say I even knew what self-care was at that time. And so I reached this level of burnout, and what that culminated in for me is that I was, for many years, I've been an entrepreneur, and I've been working inside corporates or nonprofits at the same time. I'm not now, I'm strictly an entrepreneur.
Hey.
Yay! At that time, my husband and I owned a business, and then I was also got hired into a nonprofit, but a large nonprofit that I really admired and wanted to be at, and I had a notable position. But they reached me about at this time of burnout, and I literally gave up the position in 3 months.
Wow.
I could not, I just couldn't do it. And it was like I couldn't engage, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. And for me at that time in my life, it was the hugest deal. I mean, it'd be a huge deal for me now, but now I would know how to cope with it. I would see it coming a mile away, all those things. But one day I was just like, I cannot do this. I found somebody else to take my position, and I was out of there. And it felt like the biggest failure, and it haunted me for a couple of years. I had to really work through that. And so after that, I was like, whatever it takes for this never to happen again.
Right. So you knew you needed to make some changes.
Yeah. And I was holistic, and I was always into looking for new ways to heal and all that kind of stuff. And the irony is, at the same time, I was having this great big burnout, and I didn't know it till just like I couldn't deal with it anymore.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you feel like you're doing the right things.
Yeah.
But
I was rewarded because I got this great new position.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt good about that. I felt good about all kinds of things, not the pending divorce I could see myself getting. Scared to death of that at the time.
I bet. And
it just was like, boom. After that, some physical things started happening. I started, my ears and my nose started bleeding.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Not like
scary.
not profusely, but I was like, what? So I went to a naturopath, and she gave me some simple things to do with food, some simple self-care things, like the fundamentals, like things I'd never learned about, which I'll just say in just a moment. And at the time, I did kind of my very first cleansing diet. Like I'd always tried to eat well and eat healthy, but I did my first kind of cleansing diet. And like within 2 weeks, it was all gone.
Oh my gosh. I did the most fabulous food cleanse. And I'm not talking about a juice cleanse. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me, it was, I probably did it 3 years ago, and it kicked me off into just a totally different world, because you can feel the difference when your body is getting what it needs.
Yeah.
And then once you have what your body needs and you start putting in things that it doesn't, then you can also tell really quickly that it isn't. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Let me ask you, you just said you could tell the difference. What was the difference for you?
When I was eating healthy, when I was doing the cleanse, I felt inflammation immediately gone. Like within 2 days, my rings were loose. I could see my skin changing. My skin, not that I have bad skin.
No, beautiful skin.
Well, thank you. Shameless plug. No, I'm not fishing. No, thank you. But I could even see the difference in my skin. And I just felt really good. I felt really clean. I felt really light. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I felt light. I felt clean. I felt really healthy, even only after a couple days. And so I go through these periods where I do these cleanses for that reason.
Yeah, I know you not just only for like a year now, and you've done 2 since I've known you.
Yeah. I started one today. Oh, yeah. Now I'm going to be accountable to that, because I just told the whole world on Facebook. Yes. Yes.
So can I ask you, so you saw that you feel the inflammation go down, you feel physical changes, you see your face, your skin, I should say, different. Did you feel any more connection to yourself, or did you notice anything more about your self-talk or anything more mental?
Well, I definitely, yes and no. So I don't know that I maybe didn't recognize it, but now that you're asking, yeah, because when you feel good about yourself and you feel like you're putting into your body what it needs, then of course you're talking to yourself differently. You're looking at yourself differently. When, your rings are loose, or you feel like, oh, what started happening? I did this 30-day one, and my shoes were getting big. And I'm like, oh my goodness,
wow,
my shoes are getting big. But, it's just interesting, and you just feel differently about you. So, so absolutely. I don't know if maybe that internal self-talk, right? Not the unconscious self-talk. Yeah. Yes. The unconscious self-talk, absolutely 100%. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yes. Well, because I know you're passionate about that, and that's a big part of what you do. Not just the food, but that just happens to be the conversation we just got into.
Well, food is one part of it.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the roads to that. And the reason I ask is, all that performing that I shared that I did earlier in my life, what I kind of learned by osmosis and maybe didn't really verbalize and think about it that much until later in my life was how the mind-body connection, the mind-body oneness was absolutely comes out of that kind of training. But it doesn't mean I knew how to use it consciously. I just, you train, and that happens. Then, as I went through early adulthood, I went through some of these stories and life events that I talk about, I eventually learned that that even though I knew that connection was one, that I really did think of my body as separate from me. And I don't mean a spiritual sense.
Okay.
Spiritually, I know that I am much more than my body, but I because I always was kind of beating my body into submission. That's what you do when you train for like serious competition and stuff. You kind of beat your body into submission, and so it comes from drive, not a place of love.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then what I learned and actually I learned this when I was kind of studying Chinese and ancient Asian systems of body wisdom and things as well, is that the body is a portal, and it can either keep us when we're kind of ignoring it, beating into submission, like I was saying I was doing for so many years, or just not connected to it. It can take us away from where we want to go, because we get inflammation, we get all these things that I've heard called diseases of affluence, meaning in the West, kind of our diet. I enjoy eating. I want everybody to know I love food and I enjoy eating, but without knowing it, we can eat so much of the wrong foods or just the wrong foods for us.
The wrong foods for us.
For us.
So key.
Yeah,
so key.
Personalization. And I found that all the things I was dealing with in my body, even though I looked healthy on the outside, I was going through inflammation. I was starting to have arthritis stuff. And I think partially because of injuries from
being an athlete.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then maybe like when I was younger, I always had ups and downs with my sugar a lot, like my blood sugar. I mean, to the point that if I get off, I cannot, and I go and I'll eat all the right things, but if I really ignore what I need to eat, I'll be off for a full 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
and then let me just interrupt for a second, because I feel like, we're talking about food, we're talking about nourishment, we're talking about our bodies. We have to keep our bodies healthy in order to do what we do.
Yes.
And it's interesting because as you're saying, you're feeling inflammation and you're feeling signs of arthritis. I think that, that overwhelm, it comes from a lot of things. And when you're not feeling yourself, that can't help your overwhelm.
No, it doesn't help overwhelm. And I think for me and maybe some others, it adds to it because then I just pile on the shoulds.
Oh, right. right.
I pile on the shoulds and I emotionally can't just deal. Like I have less of it's not that I can't deal. I have less of a capacity to deal with the things that could seem every day, or less of a capacity to be patient with others. Even the people on my team that are helping me create things. Just I don't have access to what you've heard me say is my unseen power. I can't get access to my love, my heart, my characters, because I have too much in my body talking and telling me all these other things.
And then you're feeling your body too.
Yeah.
You're feeling pain, or you're feeling tired, or you're feeling, the stress, it's interesting. It is all connected. It is all connected.
And it really affects the way I talk to myself. And so I promised to give us some tips, some really,
please,
just simple tips. So as a coach, I dive kind of deep in with people. But today I wanted to bring some simple tips and maybe some just foundational things that might help us go, So the number one thing I've learned is definitely get enough sleep. And even though, we hear this and, we know it's important, I don't think in our culture, I'm not talking to anybody individually,
sure,
but I don't think in our culture we value sleep. But sleep is where everything happens.
I remember a point in my life when I first started as an entrepreneur, and I had a mentor, and we were talking about reading different books and personal and professional development. And I had this really weird goal, and I never quite achieved it. And now I know why. My goal was to be able to live on 4 hours of sleep.
I've heard other people say that too.
Yeah. And I just,
but what made you want to get like just have 4 hours of sleep?
So that I could be more productive with my time, and I could get more done, of course, because I'm driven and I'm an entrepreneur. And the funny part about it, for me, it was so unattainable but it sent me into this spiral of, well, if I can't achieve this, how am I going to achieve my goals? Like, if I can't even achieve just sleeping 4 hours a night, and it's just, and then you're tired. And when you're tired, oh my goodness, I think that being tired is probably one of the worst things when you're trying to be productive and you're trying to have a conversation, or you're trying to think and you just can't. So there's so much truth to that. How much sleep do you think we need?
Well, thank you for sharing. I love that.
Because it's crazy. I would never do that now. And my husband's probably going, what is she, crazy? Because I like to sleep.
Well, you know, I think when we're professionals, and we have a lot to do, we have a lot to achieve in that drive. We think if I could only sleep less, I'd be more productive.
Yeah, and have more time.
Yeah.
Because isn't everybody looking for more time?
Yes.
Yeah.
But as you stated, it makes us so much less productive.
Totally.
But also sleep is where our healing, our restoration, those places within us that need to be restored so that we can have the energy to be resilient. Mm. That's all gets stored, heals and gets stored up in our sleep.
Interesting.
As well as just mentally, the mental break that we need happens when we sleep.
So now I feel a difference. Like 8 hours is my number. That's my number. Mm-hmm. That works really well for me.
Right.
So any less than that, I can do 7 and I'll be fine for one day. Mm-hmm. But if it were a couple days in a row, I would start to feel the difference. And even if it's any more than that, I feel tired if I sleep too much.
You got a little too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, I think we all know that can happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you're going to understand what a geek I am now, because I was like, how little sleep can I get and still be really optimal? I got it down to 6 hours and 45 minutes.
Oh, brother.
And I don't do that anymore, but that's what I did when I was in that other space. And for me, I've read, being the kind of science geek that I am, I've read tons of studies on 8 hours is the best, but I don't feel that 8 hours is the best for me. 7 hours is really good.
Great.
Yeah. If I sleep like 7 to 7.5 hours, I can feel like, oh, I got too much.
Okay.
I feel groggy. I don't feel crisp. Like my mind doesn't feel crisp.
Right.
When I get up. So 7 hours is really right for me. If anybody told me it was for 6 hours, I think it's very rare that people are really optimal below, I would say 7 hours, 6 hours, 45 minutes. But some people really think that they do really well off of 5 and 6 hours. I would, in a very friendly way, challenge them to experiment with adding 15 minutes each day until they can really know that.
To see
when they go over.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. People like, I don't know if anybody's familiar with like Joe Rogan. He's like, okay, I like Joe. Anyway, but like I think there are people that are born with rearranged genes or something that really don't, but I think they're very rare.
Yeah. Okay, so that was
so
number
sleep.
1, sleep.
Okay, second, and nothing.
And I can do that, so I'm good.
Yay!
Yeah. Awesome.
Actually, when I am feeling overwhelmed, the first thing I go back to is like, okay, I have to ask myself, am I actually sleeping? And what's the quality of my sleep? So the second is, and you've heard this a million times, but I'm going to give you a little bit different technique.
Okay.
Breathing. So you've heard this a million times, and it's so true, and I won't even go into all the reasons why, but just the breath, if you read about the breath and what it does for the body and the mind and the brain, I talked about that mind-body-brain connection. Yeah. It is the thing that connects everything. And I'll just say this today, that breathing moves us from the part of our nervous system, not to get real technical, that can support us in feeling anxious or worried or concerned, or that drive and even if sometimes we want to rein it in, we have a hard time sometimes. That's the part of our nervous system that we get stuck in.
Okay.
So the breathing very quickly can put it into our parasympathetic nervous system, which opens up our front brain, our whole brain.
Okay. Helps
us have access to calmness and creativity, problem solution type of creativity or deeper creativity. And it's the thing that helps us, it's one of the most fundamental things to help us get into quick flow. So here's I'm going to give you a different technique.
Okay, good.
And some people hear about. It's called, or I call it the connected breath.
Okay.
And it comes from a book and a process called the presence process. But instead of at the top of the breath, instead of pausing like we do in There's a lot of different breathing techniques, and they all access differently in a different way. So there's places for all of them.
Okay.
But I like using this one because when we use it, we stop thinking.
Okay. Let's do that one.
Let's do that one for just a moment. We don't stop thinking forever. So at the top, we breathe in, and just let me model it for a second.
Okay.
Okay. So we're doing some deep breathing, but we're not breathing all the way to the top where we have to pause.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking in a little bit more. We're taking more than usual, but not to that top. You know, have you ever filled up and then you have to pause?
Mm-hmm.
You have to stop.
Mm-hmm.
So we fill up, but not quite to that point, and then we exhale through our nose if our nose is okay. We can exhale through our nose. Sometimes my nose is not okay. That's why I say that. Probably TMI, right?
Yes, thank you. No, it's all good.
And then we exhale through our nose. And at the bottom, we don't push out so hard that we have to stop. At the bottom, when we're just empty, we breathe in again. So it's connected at the top and connected at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're so focused on the connection that you literally, that's, especially when you're, until you're really, really used to doing it, you really can't think of anything else.
Okay.
First of all, so we do that. And then the second level is, I don't know if we'll get to this today, but we add an affirmation while we do it. And we say one word up and one word down.
And how many times would you recommend doing the breathing? Let's say I'm going to work on a project that requires me to be fully engaged creatively and in my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And before I sit down to do it, I want to do a little breathing exercise.
Yeah.
How many breaths would you suggest?
Okay, so this is very personal as well.
Okay.
But I would suggest very minimal, very, very minimal, three full sets.
Mm-hmm.
My star clients do it for 10 minutes a day.
Wow. Like 10 minutes
Sitting down, do it as like a breathing meditation
for 10 minutes.
for 10 minutes a
Wow.
day.
Wow.
And the presence process, if you're ever doing this thing called the presence process, which is more therapeutic, we're doing it for therapeutic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
He suggests doing it, and I did this for 3 months straight, doing it two times a day for 15 minutes each.
Wow.
Now that's really a therapeutic thing, and I recommend if you're going to do that you're working with somebody.
Right.
Stuff comes up with that.
Sure.
But 10 minutes a day, and I'll tell you, long term, if you're doing it 10 minutes a day, you will change your brain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Brain science.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So that's number 2.
That's number 2.
Okay.
There's just so many to think of.
Maybe one more.
Yeah, just one more. I would say just joy. You know, along my path of seeking to, how do I fill myself up so I don't get into overwhelm, or that I can shift out of overwhelm very quickly, was always having something to look forward to outside of my business. I'm
Okay.
always looking forward to things in my business, always looking forward to the challenges and the opportunities. But something that, and this was the hardest thing for me, it's not for everybody, it was just my thing, that joy for joy's sake is awesome. And I used to think that joy for joy's sake was a waste of time.
Oh, I can relate to that. I think there's a lot of people that can relate to that.
Like, well, if I'm gonna have a garden, I'm gonna grow herbs that are medicinal and do stuff. I'm not gonna grow things that just smell good. No, I'm not like
What's
that.
the purpose
I don't
of
want
that?
the purpose of that. So that's just how like geeky I could get about my drive, my internal drive that everything else have. But really joy for joy's sake, and maybe some spontaneity with that.
And it could be just a tiny little thing. Like
Tiny
I'm
little
thinking as
things.
you're saying this, there are those moments where, okay, yesterday this was a little business related, but it was okay. So I was meeting someone, there was a coffee shop, and right next to it, there was a wine bar. And it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I thought, well, I don't need coffee, but I certainly could use a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And so it was joyful. It was joyful to just be in a different space, in a wine shop instead of a coffee shop. I spent a lot of time in coffee shops, and it's just a little thing. But I was like, oh, this is a nice atmosphere. So being just in an atmosphere that is joyful. Not that the coffee shop wouldn't be, but coffee shops are louder. There's just a different vibe. Yeah. And I think people are more relaxed in that last night in the wine shop.
The vibe there brought your joy out, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And sometimes for me, that can be just sitting. I love magazines, and I don't often take time to read magazines. I don't even read them. Who reads them? Just flip through, right? Pictures. And I love sometimes just sitting on the sofa with a glass of whatever. It could be iced tea, green tea. I love jasmine green tea. It could be wine. It could be coffee, depending on the time of day. And just looking through some magazines. Yeah. And it's like a silly thing for some people. Like maybe my husband wouldn't totally get it. Just like maybe I wouldn't totally get, sitting down to do something he enjoys. But the little things.
It is the little things. Yeah, it's the big things bring us joy, and then it's just something we have to keep doing, Yeah. But it's the little things that bring us joy, and to look forward to those, to think about them, to make time for them. I'm a big person on time blocking.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Yeah. This came up yesterday. It seems to come up all the time.
Yeah, to really time block. We time block things that we need to do our business, but time block our time.
Absolutely.
And make an appointment and be serious about that. But what I do is I'll block some time, but I need to, for me, part of my keeping me in my flow is, it sounds funny, but making myself be spontaneous. How to make myself be spontaneous. So I'll put in a time block, and then I'll go do something. Okay, what do I feel like doing? I'm just going to go do whatever I feel like doing.
Yeah.
Not errand.
Right.
Not going to go pick up the dry cleaning. Right. But for a period of that time, I'm just going to be spontaneous. And if that means, reading or listening to an audiobook or taking a walk, whatever. But it's small, and it's the thing that makes me happy right then.
Nice. I love it. I love it. Okay, so let's recap your tips. Okay, so
sleep. Get to know how much sleep you really need.
Yep.
Connected breath. Just give it a try. And 3, just joy for joy's sake. And it doesn't matter what size or shape it comes in.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. This was fantastic.
It was fun.
Yes, it was fun. Of course you can hug me. Yes,
I hug everybody too.
Yes, yay. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And we will be back here tomorrow morning again at 11 a.m. And who do we have on tomorrow? Do you remember? I don't remember. We'll see. It'll be a surprise. No, I think Simone's on Thursday.
Oh, I thought you were.
Oh, I am on Thursday. Yeah, it is Simone. Okay. No, I think it is. Anyway, it's okay. It'll be a surprise. You'll see it later, but be here anyway. Thank you so much for being here, and have a great one. See you later. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, what does that say?
Do you want to end this live video?
Yes.